These are the absolute worst jobs in Warhammer 40K. Number 6, Penal Legionnaire. If you ever think your job sucks, try getting sent on suicide missions with an explosive collar around your neck. See, the Imperium's military, the Imperial Guard, needs soldiers for suicide missions, but trained soldiers are valuable and take years to create. Meanwhile, criminals pile up in prisons across the Imperium. They tried regular prisons first, but prisons cost money. They tried quick executions, but that wastes potential labor. Then someone realized, why not use criminals as disposable troops? The practice emerged gradually over the millennia, but by the 41st millennium, it became formalized as penal legions. Strap explosive collars on convicts, give them guns, and send them to die clearing minefields or charging enemy positions. Here's how you end up in the penal legionnaire. Maybe you couldn't pay your taxes, called a tithe in the Imperium. Maybe you disrespected a commissar. That's a military officer who executes soldiers for cowardice. Or maybe you're just standing in the wrong place when quotas needed filling. You get the worst equipment imaginable. A lasgun that's a laser rifle that might explode when you fire it, armor that's basically thick cardboard, food rations that expired centuries ago, then they march you into minefields to clear them with your feet, or send you to assault fortified bunkers with no backup, or make you charge alien monsters called gene stealers. Think that thing from Alien vs. Predator, but worse. The explosive collar is the real nightmare. Handlers watch from safe distance with detonators. Show any hint of retreat, and they blow your head off. You're marked with facial tattoos so everyone knows you're criminal scum. Regular soldiers won't talk to you, won't share food, won't help when you're bleeding out. You sleep separately, eat garbage, and everyone treats you like you're already dead. Technically, survive enough suicide missions and you can earn redemption, rejoin a regular unit as a normal soldier. But here's the problem. The missions are specifically designed so you don't survive. The system has gotten worse over 10,000 years. By the 41st millennium, penal legions are everywhere, and you can end up in one for basically anything. Some poor bastards survive for decades through sheer luck, only to get vaporized right before earning freedom. Number 5, Geller Field Maintenance Worker. Now, humanity is spread across 1 million planets. To travel between stars, ships dive into the warp, an alternate dimension where normal physics don't apply and hostile entities called demons, think demons but worse, exist. Normal space travel would take thousands of years, so the warp is the only option even though it actively wants to kill you. Ships use Geller fields, psychic barriers to keep demons out during travel. When it works, you arrive alive. When it fails even for a second, demons pour in and everyone dies screaming. But here's the problem. Someone needs to maintain these fields, and it has to happen when the ship is in the warp. The Mechanicus, the tech priest organization that maintains all Imperial technology, tried everything else first. Automatic systems, warp energy corrode circuits constantly. Servitors, those are lobotomized humans with robot parts, too stupid for complex repairs. Actual tech priests, they're too rare and take decades to train. So around the 20th millennium, they settled on regular humans with basic technical training. Skilled enough to fix things, expendable enough that losing them doesn't matter. So you're crawling through maintenance tunnels while the ship travels through hell. The machinery around you is the only thing keeping demons out, and you can hear them scratching out the hole. Sometimes you see shadows moving wrong, sometimes you hear your dead mother calling your name, sometimes the walls bleed. This is normal. You ignore it and keep working because if the field flickers for even a microsecond, demons get in. The repairs are brutal too. The technology is ancient and barely understood, so you're hitting things with a wrench while reciting prayers and hoping it works. The warp exposure does things to your brain, even with protection. Workers start hallucinating, hearing voices telling them to sabotage the field, developing paranoia and extreme religious mania. Most last maybe a dozen trips before going completely insane or mysteriously disappearing in the tunnels. The veterans who've done this for years are cracked, constant twitching, talking to themselves, seeing things that would break normal people. By the 41st millennium, ships are older, fields less reliable, and workers are dying faster than ever. Number 4, Arcoflagellant Handler. So you thought handling malfunctioning equipment was bad? Try handling lobotomized combat cyborgs that want to kill everything nearby. The Ecclesiarchy, the religious organization that runs the imperial faith and worships the emperor as a god, has a problem with heretics, people who worship the wrong gods or blaspheme. Heresy spreads like a disease, and simple punishment doesn't stop it. They tried regular execution first, but that didn't deter future heresy. Prison labor kept causing problems because prisoners would organize rebellions. Public torture worked for fear, but didn't help military efforts. As the ecclesiarchy solidified its power, likely during or shortly after the Age of Apostasy in the 36th millennium, they developed a solution that was punishment, deterrent, and free shock troops all in one. Archoflagellants. Take condemned criminals, pump them full of combat drugs, surgically remove the brain parts responsible for free will, attach mechanical limbs covered in spitting flails and blades, and install a pacifier helm that keeps them sedated. Now someone has to handle these things, and that's you. Your job is keeping them sedated with drug injectors, pointing them toward enemies, and trying not to die when things go wrong. But things always go wrong. The injectors clog, the pacifier helm glitches, someone makes a loud noise. Suddenly you've got a 2-meter tall cyber zombie swinging razor flails everywhere while you frantically enter shutdown codes and pray you're fast enough. Nobody volunteers for this. Most handlers are low-ranking church members who screwed up, like falling asleep during prayer and got this as punishment. Others are failed priests or people with just enough technical skill to operate the controls, but not enough for better jobs. Training is minimal. Sedate button, release button, prayer for when you're about to die. You're a zookeeper for murder machines that occasionally scream coherent accusations about their past lives at you. Handlers last 3 to 4 months on average before an archoflagellant malfunctions and turns them into paste. Survivors develop severe trauma, substance abuse, and 1,000-yard stares. Nobody respects you, nobody thanks you, and when you die, the church just assigns a replacement. By the 41st millennium, every major cathedral has these things. Every war zone uses them, which means more handlers dying every day across the galaxy. Number 3. Homunculi Assistant. Now let's step outside humanity and talk about the Dark Eldar, aliens who live in Camorra, a city in a pocket dimension called the Webway. Here's the problem. The Eldar were a dominant galactic power for millions of years until their depravity created a chaos god called Slaanesh about 10,000 years ago. Now Slaanesh constantly drains their souls, and the only way Dark Eldar survive is by torturing others and feeding on their pain. The homunculi are masters of this. They've perfected torture for 10 millennia. They run flesh laboratories where they reshape bodies, create monsters, and generate endless suffering. As their work grew more complex over millennia, they faced a problem. They needed assistance. They tried using mindless racks, failed surgical experiments, but racks are too stupid for delicate work. They needed someone with enough intelligence to follow instructions, but expendable enough to use as spare parts. So they used captured slaves from raids or low-ranking Dark Eldar forced into service through coercion or punishment. You're dragged to a lab where screaming is background music. Your work includes preparing subjects for surgery, meaning strapping down conscious victims and cleaning the previous subject off the table. You fetch organs from storage vats, catalog pain thresholds, and clean up fluids that shouldn't exist. The homunculus you work for treats you only slightly better than the subjects. Slightly better means days without torture instead of hours. The homunculi view everyone as potential art supplies. Your master might decide your eyes would look good on a grotesque, multi-person flesh sculpture. Or your nervous system would be perfect for a pain engine, a building-sized torture machine. You're necessary for grunt work but completely expendable. You don't get a quick death when you fail. You'll be turned into a rack, a failed surgical experiment, or sewn into a grotesque while staying conscious. Some assistants last years, becoming so broken they enjoy the work. Others try escaping and end up as art installations, kept alive in pain as warnings. No retirement, just endless screaming until you're used as parts. This job has existed 10,000 years and won't improve because it's fundamental to how society functions. Number 2. Skitarii Vanguard. Back with the Imperium, let's talk about the Skitarii Vanguard. The Mechanicus' frontline troops. These are soldiers equipped with radium weapons, guns that fire irradiated rounds so deadly they can melt through armor. Sounds powerful, right? Here's the problem. The radiation doesn't just affect the enemy, it affects you too. The Mechanicus needed frontline soldiers who could punch through heavily armored targets. Blast weapons weren't cutting it against certain enemies. Plasma weapons were too expensive and unreliable. Radium weaponry is ancient Mechanicus technology predating the Imperium itself. It's incredibly effective at destroying targets and incredibly toxic to whoever carries it. The Mechanicus knows this. They've always known this. Could they make the weapons safer? Sure. Could they rotate troops more often so the radiation doesn't build up? Absolutely. But here's the thing. Safer weapons are less effective, and rotating troops waste training time. So they went with option 3. Pump soldiers full of cybernetics to make them last longer, accept that they'll die anyway, and just keep recruiting more. Your body's constantly breaking down at a cellular level. Your skin develops lesions and tumors. Your organs start failing one by one. How long you last depends on how much radiation you're soaking up and how well your augments hold together. But don't expect retirement. The Mechanicus doesn't waste resources keeping you alive once you stop being useful. The worst part? Not in the normal human, oh my god, I'm dying panic way, because the Mechanicus conditions that out of you. They reprogram your brain to suppress fear and individuality. But you're not a robot. Somewhere under all that mental conditioning and cybernetics, the part of you that's still human knows you're dying. You just can't feel the appropriate level of terror about it anymore. Most Skitarii are conscripted from Forge Worlds or VAT grown specifically for this job. Some are technically volunteers, desperate enough to accept augmentation in exchange for not starving to death, but calling it a choice is generous. Once the Mechanicus picks you up, saying no means execution or getting turned into a servitor, which is worse. Cybernetics make you stronger and tougher, sure, but they also make you property. You can't quit, you can't transfer, you're constantly sick. The radiation suppression drugs make you nauseous and dizzy. Your enhanced senses mean you can literally feel yourselves dying. Other Imperial forces avoid Vanguard units because proximity to radiant weapons can affect them too. Even other Skitarii look down on Vanguard as the disposable frontline. When you die, and you will die, they strip your cybernetics, burn your irradiated corpse, and install your augments in the next recruit. You're not a soldier, you're a temporary host for weapons too dangerous for anyone to carry long term. The Mechanicus has used the solution for millennia, and will continue for millennia more, because dead soldiers cost less than safer weapons. By the 41st millennium, Forge Worlds churn out Vanguard by the thousands, each with an expiration date. Number 1. Demon Host Creation Assistant. And finally, the absolute worst job in the 41st millennium, assisting with the creation of demon hosts. The Inquisition faces chaos, a corrupting force from the warp manifesting as gods and their demon servants. These demons invade reality, corrupt planets, turn soldiers into monsters. The Inquisition needs intelligence on chaos